Volume 6 and 7. The chapter To Europe via Karachi, Baghdad and Istanbul. Page 2044. That night, Baba and the group were driven half an hour outside of Paris to spend the night at a large French-style country estate belonging to Gana Walska, a wealthy friend of Norina's who had not met Baba before. The house was magnificent, and the garden and grounds beautiful. After a lavish meal, Baba was shown to his bedroom. It was winter, and by some thoughtless mishap, his room was not heated. Baba nearly froze and got no rest. He later took Norina aside and complained bitterly about it. Before they left the next morning, Gana Walska gave them a tour of the house. They admired all her treasures of art. When they came to one painted portrait, Gana proudly exclaimed to Baba, "That is my master, my guru." Elizabeth was shocked. Norina was quite embarrassed because she had been determined to bring this well-known aristocratic woman and others of her class to Baba, but since their interconnection was not deeply established, she rarely succeeded. At one point, however, Gana did express some interest in coming to India for a stay in the ashram. The next night was spent at Alfredo and Consuela de Sade's apartment in Paris. The de Sade's were also well-to-do French people and became some of Baba's main contacts in Paris. In the early morning of November 10th, Baba left Paris and arrived in Marseille at 10 a.m. They checked into the Hotel Terminus, Baba staying in room 303 and the others in rooms 304 and 305. Baba had been particularly anxious to reach Marseille, as he stated he had a spiritual appointment to keep. As soon as they arrived, instead of unpacking, Baba asked to be taken to began walking back and forth on a gravel path with Norina and Elizabeth on either side of him. A young Frenchman was sitting on a park bench on the other side of a grass lawn. Baba eventually strolled around the lawn, walking directly past the young man who stood up and bowed his head in a reverential way to Baba as he passed. Baba then walked away, explaining that the young man was one of his borrowed spiritual agents, working for him on the inner planes. Boarding the SS Viceroy of India at 3 in the afternoon of November 12th, Baba sailed for Marseille for India with Kaka and Chanji. The ship was absolutely full, with not a single empty berth. Among the passengers were 6 Indian princes and maharajas, but Baba met none of them during his voyage, and his presence on board was to be kept a secret. On this voyage, his cabin was comfortable, quiet, and secluded as desired, and he ate in his room. As soon as the ship reached open sea, Baba began chalking out a schedule for the Westerner stay in Nasik, and drew up a list of individual duties for each person. A fellow passenger, a Mr. J. Turner of the Associated Press, was allowed to meet Baba on the morning of November 13th. Baba would take morning and evening strolls on the ship, and he was standing on the deck as the ship passed Aden on the late afternoon of November 19th. The following day, Baba expounded on his work at the Rahuri Ashram. It is all a game of consciousness. Directing the spiritual consciousness of the God-intoxicated must, toward material consciousness, by my physical service to them, and uplifting the material consciousness of others to God consciousness by my spiritual guidance to them. Thus, my infinite consciousness works 2 ways. This present activity at the Rahuri Ashram is my latest external activity before I speak. I have called the Western men and women to India to see and share in my work. They are to be trained in a spirituality made practical, and although it will not be a crown of thorns for them, it won't be a bed of roses either. Spirituality has its inherent difficulties, but my love and guidance will render it smooth and easy for them. Therefore, to make others render service, I myself have to serve. To guide, instruct, and help humanity, I have to come down to their level of understanding and consciousness, and it is here that I am generally misunderstood. But even if I am misunderstood, my coming down to normal consciousness to help mankind does not in any way interfere or undermine my infinite state. For example, a graduate who has an MA degree comes down to the level of a student whom he teaches the alphabet to by writing the letters of the alphabet himself. It does not mean that he has ceased to hold an MA because he writes the alphabet. Therefore, my spiritual infinite state remains unaffected, even if I come down to human level. The present world chaos is the beginning of a spiritual manifestation. For instance, if a man develops a cardiac in his eye, it curtains his vision, obstructing things, and he cannot see properly. The only remedy is to remove the curtain, which means an operation on the cardiac by an eye surgeon. But before the doctor operates, he allows the cardiac to ripen. Similarly, the present condition of the world is due to mankind being steeped and drowned in materialism, indulging in self-interest and greed, which has drawn a curtain before the eye, obstructing spiritual vision and development. It is worsened to the point of creating chaos all over the world, which is a clear indication of the cardiac being quite ripe for surgery. This is what's happening in the world today. When the operation is performed, the diseases of ignorance, greed, and lust will all be removed, and the vision of the world will once again be restored to see things from a spiritual perspective as they are meant to be. The doctor is ready to operate. He waits only for the cardiac to ripen. The next morning, November 21st, Mr. J. Turner, the Associated Press reporter, came to interview Baba in his cabin at 9 a.m. He wanted to ask about the war, but before he could do so, Baba directed Chanji to read out a list of specific points which Baba had just dictated from his alphabet board. Turner was greatly impressed because certain questions he wanted to ask had just been answered. The following dialogue occurred during the 25-minute interview with Chanji reading Baba's dictation. Turner was about to ask you that question. Baba spelled out in reply, "I know everything." Aware that he was sincere, Baba permitted the reporter to ask a few more questions. "When will you speak?" Turner asked. "In about 2 years," Baba spelled out. "When will your manifestation be?" 12 years after I speak. These past 12 years of silence were for the preparation of the same." "What will be its effect?" "Convincing." "At once or gradually?" "Gradually, like the rain in crops. Rain falls spontaneously in showers at a time, but the crops take time to grow. So the effects and fruits of my work and manifestation will grow gradually as time goes on during these 12 years of my manifestation." "Will there be a war before you speak?" "Yes." "Is it necessary?" "Yes, unavoidable. None will win, none will lose, but it will create an awakening for a better and higher ideal. All the false ideas of race, color, nationality, nationalism, etc. will be eradicated and destroyed, and universal human brotherhood and idealism will be established. I shall lead the way for those who seek," concluded Baba. After 11 days at sea, Baba, Chanji, and Kaka arrived in Bombay at noon on November 23rd, and were met by Adi Jr. and Adi Sr. Before first visiting his mother Shireen, Baba was driven to Parik High Hospital at Ketwadi, where he met with his brother Behram and his wife Perrin. Perrin had given birth to a girl 6 days before. Baba was given the honor and named the baby Sunu, but later changed the name to Gulnar, when Shireen requested that the girl be named after her mother, Goladon. After meeting with Shireen at Dadar, Baba proceeded to the Dada Chanji's house, where he ate lunch. At 5 o'clock, Baba, Kaka, and Chanji left Bombay, being driven to Nasik by Adi Sr. End of chapter. Next chapter, Mehrabad, Nasik, and Rahuri. In Nasik, November 24th, Baba discussed matters at length with Rustam and Freni about the visit of the Western lovers, and after meeting their children, was driven at noon in Rustam's Pontiac to Mehrabad via Rahuri. In Mehrabad, Baba informed the men and women Mandalay about the impending arrival of the Europeans and Americans. He stated, "On my next birthday, I wish to feed 20,000 poor, and I will bow to them. I have a special reason for doing this. It is stooping to conquer. If I stoop to these 20,000 poor and destitute, the whole world will stoop to me. I intend creating a giant tufan, or typhoon, and therefore need the help of the Mandalay to work as they have never worked before. Either I shall do this, if the Mandalay cooperate with me fully and completely, or I will close up everything and work aloof and all alone. There is not going to be anything done on a halfway measure. It is going to be to the extremes either way. The foremost point to be remembered by all this is that the enthusiasm of the Westerners should not be interfered with or set back. There is no question of any of them going backwards, but since persons here are likely to become jealous over anything spectacularly successful, every precaution is to be taken to maintain the Westerners' spirit and huki, or mood. They are looking forward to their stay here. My plan is first to get them completely and comfortably adapted to the new surroundings, situation, and climate before starting the real working. For the first month, they are to take rest and feel settled in, and then for about 5 months, a course of fixed and regular but light duties will be given to each according to individual capabilities. It will be common to all to rise early every morning and meditate for 1 hour. They also will be tutored for another hour in Urdu, that is, for some future work. Certain days have been fixed when I will be with them at Nasik, or they will be with me at Rahuri and Mehrabad, and thus become acquainted with all these 3 phases of my present working, Nasik, Rahuri, and Mehrabad. When at Mehrabad, they will do as other Mandali members do while eating, sitting, etc. The Western men will mix with the men Mandali at Lower Mehrabad, the Nachenas, and the Western ladies with the women at Upper Mehrabad. After 5 months, the servant boys, butlers, cooks, and laundrymen at Nasik will be dispensed with, and the Westerners will do their own cooking, cleaning, and laundry themselves, besides giving their services in the hospital, which is intended to be open by that time. The special feature of this hospital will be that the hopeless in the worst possible condition of diseases will be collected and kept as patients under medical treatment. In the interim, doubts about Baba's intention had troubled some of the group in England. Kitty Davy wrote to Baba on behalf of the English group, expressing their concern that he would send them back after a short stay with him in India, as he had done previously, even though he had indicated they would be staying for more than a year. Baba sent back the following poignant reply. November 26, 1936. Darling Saroja, I feel so disappointed that, with all their love for me, Kimco would not understand in spite of explanations of some important things so clearly given. I was so happy you all eventually agreed to come. But the peculiar attitude of Kimco, always so typical of taking all things, however serious, so lightly, even when I want you to take things seriously and understand, causes me great pain. Your heart is so wonderful, always feeling so deeply and truly, and responsive to the call and understanding. But that peculiar mind of yours at times wobbles and tries to shake your faith, while your love revives it all again and afresh. One moment you feel quite prepared to do and withstand anything. The next moment you hesitate with ifs and buts, and feel depressed and worried unnecessarily. But I will see that this eternal struggle between the head and the heart, for you as well as for all others who suffer from the same weaknesses, ends eventually in the victory of the heart over the head, and brings about a blending of the two. In fact, I am working at it, suffering myself almost all the while by being misunderstood every moment, and in every act of compassion, in raising the consciousness and understanding of humanity to a higher level, even by my own who have known me and have been in my closer contact. Just a little individual effort to understand and do as I say would save so much trouble and pains for me and for all. On December 8th, 1936, Norina Machiavelli, Elizabeth Patterson, Jean and Malcolm Schloss, along with Rano and Nani Gailey, arrived in Bombay on the steamer Alicia. They also brought 2 dogs with them, Elizabeth's black Boston Terrier named Kippy, and Anita De Caro's white Siberian Husky, Canute, which she had given to Baba while in Switzerland. Several Bombay lovers gathered at the docks to receive the Americans. Rustam and Franey were there, and acting as their host, took them to the Majestic Hotel. Although they were tired, they had been ordered by Baba to register at the American consulate, go sightseeing in Bombay, and then go to a movie that night. The next day, Rustam drove the group to Igatpuri, since the facilities at Meher Retreat in Nasik were not yet ready. Baba came to greet them on the morning of December 10th, and then returned to Nasik. The group also visited the Nasik ashram that afternoon, and after seeing where they would be staying, returned to Igatpuri. When Baba visited his American lovers, he was wearing his old patched, Kamli wool coat. His pockets were stuffed with letters and telegrams, and Baba smilingly pulled out some, remarking, "My coat is a post office." Everyone burst into laughter. After 2 days, the group went to stay at a bungalow in Bandadara, where the climate was cooler and more comfortable. From Nasik, Baba came to stay at Bandadara for 5 days on December 14th, accompanied by Bhagarat. 2 days later, Garrett IV, Nadine Tolstoy, and Grand Duchess Marie on the ship Conte Verde. An acquaintance of Nadine Tolstoy, Duchess Marie was a Russian aristocrat who had also immigrated to America. She was a wealthy lady who had become a freelance journalist and had corresponded with Baba. However, after meeting Baba, she decided not to stay, as she became uneasy about what living conditions would be like in Nasik. She was afraid that life in an ashram would mean a loss of her privacy and individuality. Because she was wealthy and had been exploited, the Duchess suspected Baba of being like Rasputin when he advised her to abandon her plans to travel in India and come instead to Nasik for a rest, inviting her to help with the magazine he intended starting. The Duchess mistrusted Baba's intention and mistook this as his attempt to launch a project using her name. Failing to see the great opportunity before her, the Duchess stayed at Bandadara for only 4 days and traveled on in India, never to be in Baba's contact again. Garrett Fort was full of questions about what constituted spirituality, renunciation, and the spiritual path. On December 17th, Baba stated to the group, while directing his comments at Fort, "Divinity is not devoid of humanity. It lifts mankind to God. Nor does spirituality necessarily imply the renunciation of worldly activities. True spirituality signifies the internal renunciation of mundane desires. Mere external renunciation, asceticism, does not lead to spirituality. Perfection is not perfection if it tries to escape from entanglement by shrinking from the dual expressions of nature. The perfect one must assert his dominion over all illusion, however attractive and however powerful. A perfect being functions with complete detachment in the midst of the most intense activity and in contact with all forms of life. Baba would ask individuals to tell amusing stories, and Garrett Fort was pleasantly surprised at Baba's keen sense of humor. Baba smilingly reminded him, "Divinity includes all that is beautiful and gracious. How then could you expect a perfect being to be devoid of a sense of humor?" Satisfied, Fort replied that he understood. When the Westerners had first arrived at Bandadara, Baba had instructed each person to go off alone for 5 to 10 minutes and sit in a relaxed position, attempting to make the mind utterly blank. On December 17th he stated, "Don't think of anything, not even of me." Calling their attention to the water flowing over the dam, Baba pointed out, "If you find it difficult to stop the flow of thoughts, listen to the water flowing over the rocks, but be sure you are thoroughly relaxed." At one point, Baba asked how the exercise was going. Some were having trouble. He urged them to continue to try, stating, "The difficulty in realizing God lies in its infinite simplicity. Your difficulty is not your fault, and you need not worry about it. It happens because your mind has been accustomed for ages to continually thinking and holding you in its command. If you cannot do so, I will help you. But I want you to try without straining, keeping yourself produces ecstasy in trance and spiritual experience. Making the mind blank produces peace. It makes it possible for one to enter the path. It is similar to climbing a mountain. When you reach the foot before you start your ascent, you lay down your burden. When the mind becomes relaxed, there is a tendency to doze. We must make the mind a blank consciously and at will. After all, I did not bring you all the way to India to show you the sights. Baba was smiling when he made this remark. The whole creation is a result of the thinking mind. Mind binds you and mind liberates you, binds you to desires and liberates you from the same. 2 days passed in the Master's intimate company, and before Baba departed from Bandadara for Nasik on December 19th, he explained to the group, "Every one of you has to help in my work according to your individual capacity, and the extent to which you will remain in the world will be determined by the kind of work which you are destined to perform. I will teach you how to move in the world, yet be at all times in inward communion with me as the infinite being. As part of your training, you will have to experience both the comforts of Nasik and the discomforts of Rahuri and Mehrabad, and be detached from each." Baba concluded, "Don't worry and don't hurry." He then left at 1 p.m. with Bhagarat and the driver. Those Western men and women who had arrived visited Meher Retreat in Nasik on December 22nd. The bungalow where they were to stay was called Sarzat. It was near Rustam and Freni's house, situated on 22 acres. It had 12 rooms, each furnished with a box spring bed, dresser, cupboard, writing table and chair, an electric light, and other conveniences. In addition, every 2 rooms shared a bathroom with a flush toilet and hot and cold running water. Baba had taken care in seeing that all possible amenities were provided to the Westerners, which was in stark contrast to the simple and often uncomfortable conditions the Eastern Mandali had to live with in Mehrabad. In London, Baba had described the outstanding features of the Nasik ashram, warning the Westerners that they would have to adopt a simple life. But on their arrival, they discovered that Baba had provided for their comfort in every minute way. Rano gaily recollected, "When we arrived in India, we were under the impression that we would be sleeping on the floor and living under austere conditions. So we had come prepared for this with our sleeping bags, etc. When Baba took us to see the Nasik building, we were quite surprised at the comforts Baba had provided." Some of the Westerners had imagined an ascetic lifestyle. On December 23rd, Baba addressed their misconceptions. "I want you to lead a simple life here in India. Then when you return to the West, you may resume your accustomed life there. Yet you must be unaffected by either. In view of this, you may wonder why I have arranged these comforts for you. If I required you to sleep on the floor, for example, the body would rebel and in turn react upon the mind. Such sudden drastic changes would make it difficult for me to impart truths to you through the explanations I intend to give you, and your mind would not be able to grasp them. I will therefore gradually withdraw these comforts from you and later return them to you again. The world is a slave to needs. The needs must become your slaves. You must learn to use modern conveniences, not be used by them. I do not want you to give up your needs, but I want you to be free of them. Therefore, at first you may feel confused, tired, restless, or blank, but don't worry. Soon I will begin guiding you and giving you duties and work, which will make you feel content. Once I start, nothing can stop me. So rest as much as you can until January 15th. On the 16th of January, work will commence in earnest. From the 16th, you will have to begin getting up at 6:30 a.m. and retiring at 9:30 p.m., and carry out the duties which will be given to each of you. From time to time, Nasik, where rishis used to reside and meditate. But until my birthday, I do not want you to go out without my permission. You may feel confined, but it is for your own benefit. The visits to Mehrabad and Rahuri start from the 5th of January. On my birthday, I will give grain and a piece of cloth to 15,000 people. All of you will have to contribute in the work of packaging the bundles. The next day, Baba explained about his work. Remember about keeping time. In the beyond state, time and space are nil, non-existent. In the sphere of duality, time, space, cause and effect exist. Therefore, when I work in the sphere of duality for the upliftment of humanity, I am bound superficially by time and space. Consequently, I may also appear limited at times, but in reality, I continually experience oneness and the infinite state of the beyond. I work at fixed times for my circle, but for the universe no time is fixed. When I work for those in duality, time counts. Therefore, when I ask you to abide by time, it means you have the benefit of working for the circle. Always I give the Mandali a fixed time to do certain things. Sailing aboard the Rawalpindi, Kitty Davy, Margaret Crass, Delia de Leon, Tom Sharpley, along with Will and Mary Backett, arrived in Bombay from London at 5:30 in the evening on December 24th. They were met at the dock by about 50 Bombay lovers, and after a night's rest were escorted to Nasik, reaching there at noon Christmas Day. During that Christmas Day, T.A. Rahman, an editor of the newspaper The Evening News of India, came to Nasik and interviewed Norina Bachabeli, Nadine Tolstoy, and Garrett Fort. He also approached Baba with several questions. Rahman criticized that there was too much so-called spirituality in India. The following is his dialogue with Meher Baba. Rahman cynically said to Baba, "What we need in India is a holiday from things of the spirit." Baba answered with a smile, spelling out, "I will not give a holiday, but permanently retire the forms and rituals of different religions on which India blames half her troubles." "What then is your philosophy about?" "I have no philosophy." "If you have no new philosophy to preach, what is your job?" Rahman asked. Baba dictated in reply, "My job is to awaken the feeling of godliness in humanity." Rahman said, "But let us not forget the poverty of our country and the fact that we rank so low among nations." Baba replied, "Our miseries are the product of man's selfishness and greed. If we live the life of God, these economical disparities will vanish. If all men decide to help each other, sacrifices will become easier, and inequalities of wealth and opportunity will vanish." "Well, why don't you break your self-imposed silence and preach in the marketplace?" "Every great change must be carefully timed. How else could it be with the greatest revolution in the mind of man? The time of preaching in the marketplace will come, but only after the world has been humbled and purified by a carnage greater than any the world has yet seen. For years I have predicted that a war was definite. It will be shorter, but far more terrible than the last one, and India will be radically affected, as a result of which social and economic conditions in the country will be revolutionized. The First World War was not enough to bring about a change of heart in man. The world, purged of its pride, will listen to reason only after an even more terrible purgatory. I repeat, a global holocaust will engulf the world. "So, that is your opinion?" the journalist asked. Looking directly at Rahman, Baba smiled and spelled out, "My son, I have no opinion to offer. I know." The reporter had come to challenge Meher Baba, but left impressed and moved by the depth of feelings and genuine love of the Westerners toward Baba, and appeared in the newspaper The Evening News on January 7, 1937, and it was sympathetic. On the night of December 25th, there was a Christmas dinner. Baba sat in the middle of a long table with the whole group. The Westerners had brought various presents for Baba, which they placed before him. Baba's mood was very joyful as he unwrapped each present and then handed out different gifts. Franny had cooked special vegetarian dishes and made a cake with a delicious icing. After dinner, Baba asked Kakabaria to give a short speech in English. Kaka barely knew the language, but nevertheless bellowed out some short exhortations in broken English, which afforded much amusement to all. Cognizant of the Westerner's habit of arguing, questioning, and suggesting, the gist of Kaka's remarks was, "No suggest, no discuss, just obey." At one point, when the Westerners were laughing at Kaka, Baba snapped, "Let's see how well you'll be able to deliver a speech in Urdu in a few months." After the meal, Baba's mood softened, and he stated, "My love flows eternally to all humanity, but at this particular moment, we will remember those of the group who are physically absent." After a few moments of silence, as if in remembrance of Jesus Christ, Baba commented, "I am crucified every moment. I am continually crucified and continually taking birth." Thereafter, Baba personally led the group to the Sarzat building and assigned single rooms to each person. Kitty, Delia, Margaret, Tom, Malcolm, Jean, Will, Mary, Nadine, Garrett, and later Rwano Bogoslav were each given a single room. One room was kept vacant as an editorial office for Garrett and Malcolm. Norina and Elizabeth shared a room in the main Manzil bungalow not far from Sarzat, where Rano and Nani had their own rooms. Baba had a private room and a bath in the same building. The Eastern Mandali had quarters elsewhere, and Franny, Rustum, and their children stayed in a small cottage near the main bungalow. On December 26th, Baba suggested to the group that they pay their share of expenses of the Nasik ashram. It was approximately $30 per month, and some felt inclined to pay more. Later he explained about giving him gifts. What you give to the master on his birthday is dakshana. Gifts given by members of the circle on that occasion do not benefit them directly because, being members of the circle, they do not need it. But when gifts are given, they benefit those closely connected with them. For example, if Delia makes a gift to me on that occasion, the spiritual benefit touches her mother. After the 15th of January, I will be explaining many things which Kitty should take down in shorthand for Nani to type and give to Garrett. Garrett and Malcolm are going to edit a magazine. It will be unique. Bob explained to his Western lovers about their stay in Meher Retreat and added, "I will come here to see you once or twice a week, and thereafter less frequently. I am quite busy with Mehrabad and Rahuri. In Rahuri, I have to look after the musts and the mad. I do this work very attentively, and the place needs my personal presence." Baba concluded, "Being the avatar, I have a bad habit of keeping an eye on everything minutely." Although the Westerners were thrilled at being in India, they were disappointed to learn that Baba would not be with them more often. At 2 in the afternoon, Baba left Nasik for Rahuri. A few days later, on December 29th, Norina and Elizabeth, accompanied by Kaka and Ramju, drove to Rahuri in a car Elizabeth had purchased. A meeting of the Meher Maintenance Trust was to be held at Rahuri that day, and they were to attend. When they arrived, Baba gave Elizabeth and Norina a tour of the ashram. He showed them where a cabin made of brick, which was the only permanent building in the ashram amidst the thatch huts where the Mandali and inmates resided. It had been built while Baba was away in Europe. Baba explained to them about his work with the musts and mad, and commented about some of the mad who were lepers. "However infected these men are, it does not affect me or my men helping me to bathe them. When I wash the mad at Rahuri, I am washing them universally." Baba pointed out which inmates were mad, suffering a mental disorder, and which were spiritually advanced musts, or God-intoxicated, remarking, "Through some blows a breeze of longing for God." On occasion, Baba would permit Elizabeth to take photographs, and she and Norina were deeply impressed at how lovingly Baba treated the mad and God-mad alike. Baba ate lunch with them at a long table under the trees. After the trust meeting, Norina and Elizabeth returned to Nasik. Mohammed the Mast had the distinction of being one of the few genuine advanced souls that Baba personally cared for and provided a home for at Mehrabad the rest of his life. This is a brief description given by Mohammed himself of how he came to Baba. Born in a Hindu family, his given name was Tukaram Laksham Chavan. His father's name was Laksham, and his mother Kondabai. Tukaram was the youngest in a family of 15 children. He had 10 brothers and 4 sisters. As the youngest, he was affectionately called by the family Nana Bao, little brother. They lived in a small village near Sanwadwadi in the Konkan district along the seacoast south of Bombay, north of Goa. As a child, he was normal and grew to be a chubby boy, enjoyed playing marbles and flying kites with his friends. As was customary in India at the turn of the century, his family arranged his marriage, and he was married to a girl named Lakshmi. They had a young daughter named Sakubai and a younger son named Gangaram. To earn his livelihood, he worked in his father's brick business. He was not particularly devout, by his own account, and enjoyed gambling in the bazaar, where he won frequently. He enjoyed the normal pleasures. How it happened. It was during the late 1920s or early 1930s. One day, early in the morning, in his thatched house, while standing, after just tying a red cloth around his waist for his underwear, he was suddenly struck. In one moment, all of a sudden, he became divinely intoxicated and just stood there and did not move. Dazed, he remained standing like that for about 2 weeks, unmoving in the same position, naked except for the red wrap. Something brought him out of this, and he abruptly left his wife and children, village and relatives, and was drawn to go to Bombay, because he inwardly knew that there were many other persons musts. After a number of years passed, with his walking around and seeing the whole of Bombay, and subsisting on literally pieces of bread that he found lying on the ground, he ended up sleeping in front of a tea shop near the Bendi Bazaar. Some Muslims who had a respectful feeling about him gave him the name Mohammed. Pleader found him at this tea shop and bought him the first good meal he had in years, and soon after took him to Baba in Rahuri. Amazingly, he did not recognize Baba at first when he met him, but he wanted to embrace Baba, and Baba likewise. The embrace made him incredibly happy. From that moment, he slowly began to realize who Baba is. After some time, it was Baba himself who gave Mohammed his current profession, which he works day and night. In Nasik, the following schedule and rules were posted at the retreat for the Westerners. 6:30 a.m., wake up. 8 a.m., breakfast. 12 p.m., lunch. The group ate together. 7 p.m., dinner. 9:30 p.m., sleep. No one should sit in the sun between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. because of the strong rays. Until February 25th, none of the Western devotees should walk beyond the property boundaries because of large cobras in the vicinity. None of the Western devotees should converse with visitors unless ordered by Baba. And none of the Western devotees are to receive or invite guests for meals or to stay overnight unless ordered by Baba. No one should enter the kitchen. Complaints are to be referred to Norina, who is given overall charge of the ashram. For errands in Nasik or Bombay, refer to the office. Access to the storeroom can be at any time during the day. Ask for the key at the office. No one is allowed to use the automobiles without informing the office. The Baba kept Adi Jr., Chanji, and Kalingad in Nasik to assist Westerners, along with Rustam, Freni, and Ramju. At first, charge of the ashram was in Adi Jr.'s hands. Afterward, Norina was to take charge beginning January 15th. Above all, Baba wished this small, diverse group of strong individualists and divergent personalities and nationalities to live together in harmony. He stressed this during his visit on December 31st. I have left things in Norina's charge regarding food and general management. To have complete harmony among you all, 4 points should be kept in mind. First, there should be complete cooperation between you all and Norina. Second, in some matters, Norina should give way. In some, you should give way. You all have come here to learn spiritual truth, leaving all. So, you should put up with small discomforts and inconveniences. By this, I do not mean that you should overlook your real needs and necessities. We are going to give the world a message of love and brotherhood through Garrett Fort's magazine, and if in our home we have conflicts and disharmony over trivial matters, our message would be farcical and hypocritical. Third, the thorns to which I previously referred will be in many forms. If you take them too seriously or give them too much importance, they will naturally cause unnecessary suffering. But if you take these thorns lightly and do not attach undue importance to them, even these thorns will be like flowers. Fourth, if any of you here have the impression that Norina tries to run things her own way just because she is in charge, it is a grave, unjust misconception and should immediately be removed from your minds. I know whatever Norina does is only out of her deep economize and save us as much as possible for my work. On the other hand, Norina seems to have the notion that some do not like it that she is in charge, although I know it is quite the contrary. They all like Norina to manage things as she does. These misunderstandings create unnecessary situations and disharmony and upset things, so the sooner you all clear them up, the better. You should never forget that your aim is spiritual. Otherwise, the retreat would be like a rest house or a hotel. If you have come for me, you should also suffer for me. In the event any of you are feeling indisposed, you should report at once to Norina, and she should give it her immediate attention and either utilize Garrett Fort's stock of medicines or send for a doctor if it is anything serious. Norina should give us a detailed health report when I come every week. In the afternoon, from 3 to 5 o'clock, Baba took them on a tour of the city of Nasik, showing them the Gangapur River and other sights. By the river, Baba sat down on a rock near the waterfall, and the Westerners respectively seated around him, enjoying the intimacy with the Master. The next day, January 1st, 1937, Baba continued upon the same theme of living together harmoniously. Love for a perfect Master, however deep or devotional it may be, does not necessarily affect the original nature of a person because, despite apparent superficial changes, the individual nature remains the same up to the seventh plane. On the seventh plane, there is no individual mind, therefore no individual nature. This nature is so powerful that it continually tries to assert itself, and being inherently beyond one's control, even influences the expression of pure love by often assuming irritating and embarrassing forms. So, in order to keep the love of my disciples for me unalloyed, I have to humor less noble qualities of human nature, such as jealousy, pride, anger, etc. Otherwise, there is always the danger of these qualities gaining supremacy over love and changing it into a feeling of opposition, thus creating hindrances in my work. For instance, K. J. Dastur and Herbert Davy now oppose me. There were differences and strife among the Westerners almost daily during the Gnostic period, but this discord had its purpose. The Avatar comes to sweep the world clean, to cleanse the human mind and purify the heart. Through his circle members, Baba was sweeping the world, collecting the refuse at one place, in one being, so that he could dispose of it. The forceful sweep of his hand at work would touch their innermost being, and the dirt of the world surfaced through their minds and in their weaknesses. That was why weaknesses were so glaringly visible at this time among the Westerners, giving rise to heated quarrels. It was Baba's work stirring things up. These quarrels, however, acted as a medium to bring the uncleanliness of the heart to the surface, making visible the defects of all. Baba used the strife as a constructive means of wiping away the inherent weaknesses in each individual. Such struggles and dissensions clean out the mind, and are quite different in nature from worldly dissensions, which have as their basis selfishness and the ego's pride. The discords in the company of the Master are unconsciously dependent on love and are liberating, for they root out all impurities. One morning, when Baba was on tour of inspection, he came to Malcolm Schloss's room and inquired how he was doing. "Very bad," Malcolm replied. "I am full of pride. I get impatient and irritable over unimportant things. What can I do about it?" Baba just looked at him. That moment was profound. As Malcolm later recalled, "I shall never forget the look that Baba gave me. If he had spoken, he could not have said more clearly, 'Well, now, at last we can get to work.'" Baba spelled out, "In some ways you are very advanced, in others you are very lacking. Pride is your one shortcoming." "My one shortcoming," Malcolm explained. "What of my impatience, my irritability?" "Those are the result of pride. When the pride goes, they will go." This is the end of Tape 4, Side 1, Lord Mayher, Volume 6. 4, Side 2. "What can I do to make it go?" exclaimed Malcolm. "Of course you cannot make it go," Baba said, "but I shall do it for you. Nevertheless, you must try. You must make the effort." "What shall I do?" "Don't let little things disturb you. Rise above them. Be big. Be generous. Leave the rest to me. And don't be concerned about it. I will do it. I have to for the sake of my work." Baba then embraced Malcolm. The last to come to India, Ruano Bogoslav, arrived in Bombay on January 2nd via Colombo aboard the Strathard. She was met by Chanji, who brought her to Nasik the same day. There were now 15 Westerners staying together in the ashram. On January 5th, Baba took the Westerners to Rahuri. All rose early at 4 a.m., and after breakfast left Nasik at 6 o'clock. Arriving at Rahuri, the group met the men Mandale, Gani, Vishnu, Pendu, Padre, Rao Sahib, Baidul, and Dr. Nilu. After they toured the ashram and saw the mad and musts, Baba discoursed about selfless service. As an object lesson to others to render service to humanity, I myself serve others. In the ashram school at Mehrabad, I wanted my Brahmin devotees to serve the untouchables. For that purpose, I personally served the untouchable boys, bathing them and washing their clothes. When I asked my Brahmin devotees to assist me, they did, for they loved me. In true service, there must be no lingering idea that one is free to yield service or refuse it. One must feel that one is not master of one's own body, but that one's body is the Guru's and exists merely to render him service. I may want anything from you. I may like some of you to nurse and wash the lepers and look after them. I may want some to meditate on me, or wander about like sadhus, or dance and sing with joy, or become like skeletons, or grow big and fat. But whatever it may be, all should work for me. It is your doing it for me that counts. Otherwise, we have hospitals and nurses to attend to them. But I want you to work for me, beg for me, play for me. Then it is the same. This is Vedanta and Christian philosophy in a nutshell. So very easy, yet so very difficult. Turning to Margaret Crast, Baba concluded, "If you dance for me, you do as much good as one who meditates on me. Some like work, some like play. But when you do it for me, then it is the same. Try to forget yourself and do all for Baba. Let it be Baba all the time." Leaving Rahuri, they drove on to Mehrabad, arriving at 11 o'clock. Baba showed them the men's quarters at Lower Mehrabad, and then took the Western women up the hill to see Mera and the other women mandali. Naja, Mani, Khorshid, Sunamas. His mother Shireen was also there, and Baba took them to meet her at the family quarters, where Dalamai, Mera's mother, and her sister Freni Masi, Padre's mother, were living. Baba noted that the Western group had not eaten much up on their visit to Mehrabad and commented, "I intend to start giving the food myself as I used to do. This is an old custom of mine which I have stopped for the last 4 years. The food is brought to me, then each of you bring your plate and I give it. Jesus did this." When they returned to Nasik, Baba asked each how they had liked Mehrabad. They all said, "Very much." Baba asked Rano Gailey's opinion of the place, and she said frankly, "It's lovely, Baba, but not for me." Baba just smiled. Rano had not the least idea that she would be spending the rest of her life with Baba in India. On January 8th, Baba began fasting on only 2 cups of milk and 2 cups of tea daily, and stated that he would continue to do so for 40 days until his birthday on the 18th of February. Each of the Westerners was to participate in the fast turn by turn, one each day from the 8th, in the following order: Jean, Delia, Margaret, Garrett, Nadine, Kitty, Rano, Tom, Elizabeth, Nani, Malcolm, Mary, Will, Rowano, Norina, and on the 23rd Freni was to fast. From January 24th, the men and women mandali at Mehrabad would alternately fast along with Baba until February 18th. Baba returned to Nasik on January 9th, having decided to stay for 4 days. On January 11th, he took the group to the Pandu Lena caves, about 5 miles away. They left Nasik in the morning at 6 o'clock. Besides the 15 Westerners, Baba was accompanied by 4 others. He wore a wine-red scarf over his head, and another scarf of ochre around his forehead. Franny put a garland of roses around Baba just before they drove off. At the Pandu Lena caves, Baba took them to each of the 22 caves, and in some he made a few remarks about the rishis, sages, and yogis who had stayed there. Baba particularly liked cave number 8, and sat in it with Norina, Delia, and Elizabeth, remarking, "I may come here and stay some time for my universal work." Baba narrated the story of Krishna and the Pandava brothers, and then led the way back down. Walking up to the caves in the morning, Baba had kept pace with the slowest of the group. Now, while coming down, he led the way, and before entering the car, waited at the bottom until all were safely down. Back at the retreat, Baba gathered the Westerners and commented about the trip. "You all know what an excellent climber I am. You have seen me in Italy. In China, Herbert Davy challenged me to climb a certain place and see who got there first. I did and won. Yet today you observe me climbing up slowly, so as to keep pace with the others who could not climb so well. Outsiders who did not know might think that Baba was a slow climber. Although I am spiritually first, that is why I am so often misunderstood in my human aspect." Was the climb a strain for you all? Because next time we have to climb up to the temples, which are higher than the caves. On another occasion, Baba did take the Westerners to the temples. On that outing he pointed to a temple and remarked, "True sanctity does not lie in the dead walls of brick and stone, or even in the waters of the sacred rivers, but in the living beings who fill the environment with the fire of their devotion, love, and worship, and in the great spiritual forces released by the masters during their stay here." Baba wished the group to begin visiting Mehrabad every Friday. In Nasik on January 11th, he asked the Western women, "I want you all to tell me honestly whether it will be a strain for you to come to Mehrabad one day a week. You must leave here at 5 a.m. Will that suit you?" All agreed to go. On January 13th, Jean Adriel was severely burned when a pot of boiling water overturned on her lap. She and Malcolm were then left behind in Nasik when the others went to Mehrabad on January 15th. The group left Nasik at 5 in the morning, arrived in Rahuri at 8, and then at 10 o'clock left with Baba for Mehrabad, where they stayed until 4 in the afternoon. From Baal Kalchuri. Their visits to Mehrabad were especially happy times, when the gopis of the east and those of the west surrounded their Lord and beheld his beauty. During this period, Jean Adriel, however, was feeling depressed. On January 18th, Baba came to see her privately. He reassured her that, though the burn was painful, its results would be beneficial. Unknown to her, Baba had a private meeting with Malcolm and stated, "I must tell you in confidence that Jean will die. Tell no one what I have told you, not even Jean. I only want you to be prepared." Malcolm took it calmly and thanked Baba for telling him. A few days later, however, Baba informed him that instead of dying, Jean would suffer a complete collapse. During this period, Baba began observing the following weekly schedule. Monday, 8 a.m., Rahuri to Nasik. Tuesday, 10 a.m., Nasik to Rahuri. Wednesday, 8 a.m., Rahuri to Mehrabad, and return to Rahuri. Thursday, Rahuri the whole day. Friday, go with the Westerners to Mehrabad, and return to Rahuri. Saturday, Rahuri. Sunday, Western men come to Rahuri to be with Baba. Sometimes Baba would arrive in Nasik very early in the morning before the Westerners were awake, usually driven there by either Adi Senior or Sarosh. Someone would call out, "Baba is here! Baba is here!" and all would scramble out of bed and into their clothes and wait for Baba to come to the Sarzat building. After greeting each one, Baba would gather with them for breakfast in the dining room of the main bungalow, where Baba had his room. Everyone ate together at a big table, and Baba sat at one end when he was there. Their meals were served by a turbaned butler, but at times Baba would serve the food himself. Afterward, they would sit around Baba in the living room. Sometimes he would ask them to read out their dreams, which they had been told to record. One morning, Norina awakened to find Baba outside her window. "Tell me your dream," he asked. Norina hesitated, embarrassed, because it had been a vivid sexual dream. At last she did. Baba indicated to her not to worry about it and remarked, "Even on the sixth plane one still has lust." Occasionally, Baba held private 15-minute interviews with each person. Other times, Baba would give a discourse or explanation arising from someone's questions. Sometimes he would settle disputes or even create them. In the afternoon, on the main veranda, one day, Baba was observed in the living room lying on the couch, absorbed in his inner work. Afterward, he rose slowly and went to the ping-pong table and began playing the game with one of the group, as if to bring himself down from that super-conscious state. Usually after dinner, Baba would again discourse to the group sitting outside in the garden, or go on a walk before retiring for bed at 9. Whenever Baba would spend the night in Nasik, he would sit in an armchair and allow Delia and Margaret to brush his hair. They would sometimes brush his hair as he listened to the group recount their dreams. Margaret Krast once recollected, "A few of the disciples in Nasik had a strong belief that their dreams indicated some special spiritual progress and were most anxious to recount them to anyone who would listen. Baba lovingly agreed to listen to these dreams and discuss them and arranged for everyone to meet each morning at 5:30 in the sitting room. Delia and I, who confessed to having no dreams of any kind that we remembered, were told that instead of entering the discussion, we were to brush Baba's hair and massage his scalp. For us this was wonderful. What were dreams compared with the pleasure of brushing Baba's beautiful hair and with our fingertips massaging his scalp? His head was an amazing shape. Even now, my hands can remember how it was formed." From the middle of January, Baba outlined duties for each of the Westerners staying in Nasik. Everyone was to rise at 6:30 a.m., meditate for an hour, and together take an hour lesson in learning the Urdu language from Ramju Abdullah. No one, not even the older ones such as Nani or Rowano, was allowed to rest in the afternoons. Their individual duties were as follows. Delia de Leon, 1 hour teach drama and art. 1 hour dancing with Margaret Krast. 2 hours gardening. Elizabeth Patterson, help Norina with the ashram accounts. Drive members of the group to the bazaar or elsewhere, such as Rahuri or Mehrabad, whenever needed. Look after the dogs, Canute and Kippy. Garrett Fort, 3 hours writing from the points given by Baba during explanations or discourses. Jean Adriel, secretary to Garrett and Malcolm in the magazine work. 2 hours writing spiritual poetry and prose. 1 hour weaving. Kitty Davy, 1 hour teach piano to Rustam's daughter Mehru. 2 hours working with Margaret in setting music to her dances for the film. 1 hour typing Baba's work. Daily write a diary to be shown to Baba upon his request. Malcolm Schloss, 3 hours prepare lectures to be delivered when asked by Baba. Margaret Krast, 1 hour teach dancing to Rano and Delia. 2 hours choreographing dances for the film project. Help Delia with the gardening whenever time was available. Mary Backett, weaving, spinning, sewing clothes for destitutes, also painting and designing. Nadine Tolstoy, translate Baba's life and messages into Russian. Help Norina, Rowano, and Mary as and when required. Nani Gailey, general typing and translating of Kitty's shorthand notes of Baba's discourses and explanations. 1 hour writing as instructed by Baba. Help everyone as and when she liked and could manage. Norina Machabelli. Supervision of the household affairs of the Western group. Keep accounts of the Nasik side of the trust. Rano Gailey. Drawing and painting of spiritual themes as instructed by Baba, and 1 hour dancing with Margaret. Ruano Bogoslav. Supervise and conduct the departments of the bazaar, marketing, cooking and serving meals, and laundry for the whole group under Norina. Look after the birds brought from Marseille, which had been brought from Meribad and handed over to her care. Tom Sharpley. Whenever and wherever needed. Will Backett. 3 hours attending to correspondence with Europeans to keep in direct contact with all in India. The magazine which Baba intended Garrett Fort and Malcolm Schloss to start was to be named Avatar. Referring to it, Baba remarked, "When the magazine is started, it must not stop, and it must be very good. Garrett and Malcolm are to work on it together. I want it to continue being published for 5 years. However, because the Westerners only stayed in Nasik 7 months, the publication never materialized. But perhaps Baba had other reasons for issuing orders relating to the magazine, since it did bring out a number of conflicts between Malcolm and Fort, and Baba always worked through conflict." During this period, unknown to the Westerners, Chandji was instructed to write Dr. C.D. Deshmukh in Nagpur, a professor of Eastern and Western philosophy, and request him to rewrite drafts of Meher Baba's discourses in the master's name for the magazine. Baba was too busy moving back and forth between the 3 ashrams and had no time to dictate each discourse. Then, prior to publication, Baba would carefully peruse each discourse draft and make corrections and additions. Thus, C.D. Deshmukh and at times Ghani Musif, Ramju Abdullah, and others served as the master's ghostwriters and wrote the first drafts of the discourses based on points dictated by Meher Baba. When Baba would visit Nasik once a week, he would ask Margaret to show him the dances she had been choreographing. Margaret commented later that he would always point out errors and suggest corrections that only an artist perfect in his art would know, which thus shows Baba's perfection in all things. Rano Gailey was painting under Baba's direction, and he was also very particular about overseeing her work. He would give her many points and figures to be incorporated into what was to become the 10 circles painting, and she would make sketches and show them to Baba for his approval. Once during this period, Rano had a wonderful experience. She awoke one morning and saw Baba's face in a vision of dazzling light. The next day, when she was alone with Baba, he turned to her and asked, "What were you dreaming of last night?" She described what she had seen. Rano smoked Lucky Strike and Chesterfield cigarettes when she came to Nasik, but she was careful never to smoke in Baba's presence. One day Baba came along just as she was finishing a cigarette. She quickly put it out and said, "Baba, this was my last cigarette." Baba looked pleased and gave her an embrace. Rano surprised herself when she made this remark, since Baba had not asked her to quit. The next day Garrett Fort offered Rano some Chesterfields. Rano moaned, "I've given my word to Baba to quit smoking. What kind of disciple would I be if I couldn't do this much? Why couldn't you have come along a day earlier?" Rano never missed smoking except when she was painting or taking a break to reflect on her work. The reader should not be prejudiced or think that Meher Baba was against smoking or alcohol, etc. In some cases, Baba would not make a comment regarding one's personal habits, even though they were obvious addictions. At this time, Padre, Adi Senior, and Pendu were smokers, and many of the men Mandali chewed tobacco or pan, but most of the close women did not smoke. Baba would ask each individual about their morning meditation and encourage them to take it seriously. On Sunday, January 17th, he remarked, "I want you to be light-hearted and enjoy humor. but I also want you to be serious about certain points, especially about meditation. Constant prayer and selfless service are both vital in turning the mind away from worldly things and directing it toward spirituality. Each person should meditate alone in his or her room upon rising in the morning. Once Baba surprised Rano by coming into the room as she was meditating. He caught her dozing back to sleep and instructed her to keep a photograph of him in front of her and concentrate on it. During the meditation hour, Baba directed that there must be absolute quiet in the compound. External silence helps the inner silence, and only in profound inner silence. Baba gave each individual instructions in regard to meditation. He directed Malcolm Schloss not to tell anyone but him what he saw or heard during meditation. Malcolm asked if he should interrupt his meditation to write down anything which came to him while meditating. No, Baba replied. What you see, once you begin seeing in this way, you will never forget. You will know what you are and where you are going. You will be like a rock. You will know where you stand. During the following day, Baba allowed the Westerners to ask him questions. Baba began by dictating, "It is so easy for you to love those whom you already love, but to love those whom you hate, that is something. By loving I mean not merely being kind. Does any one of you think it is possible to love those whom you don't like? It will happen." Elizabeth Patterson asked Baba, "Where do we go when we go to sleep?" "Everywhere," he replied. "You are always everywhere, even now. Though fully conscious, you are not conscious that you are everywhere, because the mind always has the natural tendency of losing its identity. Is that clear?" Elizabeth asked, "Then what makes us wake up?" "Impressions. They prick you and you get up. They cry out, 'Spend us!' The mind always wants to go, so in sleep you always go back, and when you wake up, you feel fresh. But again after waking, the mind wants to lose its identity." "What are dreams?" she asked. "Dreams are subconscious experiences which are always linked with your gross experience of the past. Sometimes in your dreams you see persons you never saw in this life. This link is from the past. It is all based on illusion and imagination." Elizabeth said, "Then how is it that when I was 12 years old I dreamt of you 3 different times? When I first met you I recognized you as the one I had known in the dream. That was not illusion." "What I mean," replied Baba, "is everything except your being infinite is illusion. I am very ancient, very, very old, and always young." Norina then asked, "What is imagination?" "Imagination is what you want to be and are not," Baba replied. The next day, January 19th, Baba translated a few couplets of the perfect master Kabir. "One cannot start running at full speed. One must gather momentum and gradually increase the speed. If one is to be stained with the spiritual color, one must be stained gradually. The color takes time to penetrate. For it to become deep and rich, it must be applied gradually. The mind which has been sleeping the sleep of ignorance for ages can only gradually be awakened to knowledge." At the beginning of January 1937, Baba had begun a 40-day fast. By January 22nd, he made some changes in his schedule. He now began taking food and liquids only between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. daily. For the remaining part of the day until 10 a.m. the following day, he would observe a stricter fast, not even taking water. He had directed that one member of the Western group fast with him, and they began observing the fast alternately in the following way: 10 a.m. lunch, 12 noon orange juice, 1 p.m. tea, toast, and honey, 2 p.m. water. The Westerners, Adi Sr. and Chanji, left Nasik early in the morning on January 23rd for their third visit to Marabat. Baba was waiting for them there. The group went in 3 cars. Garrett Fort drove one of the cars, and Adi Sr. and Elizabeth the other 2. At the end of the visit, Baba instructed them to stay together for the return trip to Nasik, and specifically directed Fort to drive the same route. But on the way back, Fort nevertheless took a different route, saying it was for the sake of variety, and lost his way after some distance. When he ran out of gas, he became frightened. It was a deserted road, and he had no idea how to get back to Nasik. It was getting dark, and he called on Baba from the bottom of his heart. Then a car came from the opposite direction. The driver lent him some gasoline, and told him how to get back onto the main road. He returned to the retreat late at night, and realized what happens if one goes against the master's wish. Baba arrived in Nasik on January 29th at 8 p.m. The next day in the afternoon he held a meeting at which he stated he wished to discuss a matter of great importance. Take all that I say seriously. It is vital. I have not yet started to work on you. I wanted to see how everything went on here during the first month. Now, today, certain things have to be decided. Be honest in your replies. During the past month that you have been living here together, there has not been the harmony among you that I had hoped to see. As things stand at present, I cannot carry out the work I intend doing. Either you must live harmoniously together and help me in my work, or the ashram must be disbanded, and I'll have to do my work alone. Are you all prepared to live here for 5 years? And harmoniously? I would definitely prefer you to stay and help me. But if you really think you cannot stay, or that there cannot be real harmony, then it had better be goodbye. I have not yet started the work. The thorns are waiting to prick you. I am talking plainly to you, so do not answer without thinking. Do not let sentiment and temporary enthusiasm sway you. Once agreed and spoken, your promise must be adhered to. If you, Margaret, Delia, or Kitty receive cables calling you home because of some family problems, you are not to go. Maya may cause trouble. You should be on your guard and remember, whatever happens, do not go. I am sure none of you will go, but I am warning you. There are bound to be differences, but one or the other of you must give in. One of you must give in. That means all of you who stay must be prepared to give in. I do not mind crises. I do not mind chaos, but I do mind disharmony. At present, I have to spend my time patching up things, drawing both persons together on common ground, instead of spending it for the work and pushing you forward. I tolerate everything, so you must do the same. Be tolerant with everyone, and when you feel like rising up in a fury and having an argument with your adversary, say, I am here for Baba, and Baba wants above all else harmony. Don't you think I am right in asking these questions? All said yes, and Baba continued, You will feel excited, jealous, proud at times. All of these qualities are there. What I say is, give in spite of them. It is easier to go through fire than to give in. It is a more difficult task than creating the creation to turn a selfish person into an unselfish one, to turn stubbornness into flexibility. Baba asked each person, one by one, to give his or her answer. Each person said they were prepared and would do their best to live harmoniously together and to stay in India for 5 years or longer. This made Baba very happy. On January 31st, Baba took the Westerners to a Hindi movie called Janma Bhoomi at the Circle Cinema at 10 a.m. Later that day, Garrett Fort showed Baba the story he had written. Baba liked it and urged him to continue writing for the magazine. Baba then left Nasik at 3 that afternoon for Rahuri, driven by Adi Sr. On Monday, February 1st, 1937, the opening ceremony of the Meher-free dispensary was performed in Rahuri at 8 o'clock that morning. Dr. Nilu was to be in charge of it, with Brother Jal as his assistant. Gani Musif read out a message from a greatly successful person who once said, "I succeeded because I was always 15 minutes early to begin my work." The irony of Gani quoting these words was not lost on his fellow Mandali. Regarding the medical facility, Baba commented, "After a month or two, people will flock to our dispensary, and many, especially the poorest, will be benefited." The dispensary began operating from the next day. Another doctor named Vidwan was hired later to work in the dispensary as the caseloads increased. During this period, the Haki continued to manage the office affairs at Rahuri. Baba was expected in Nasik on February 4th, but the 3rd was Norina Machabeli's birthday. So to give her a surprise, Baba arrived in the evening of the 3rd from Rahuri. Baba, however, was exhausted, and Adi Sr. told the group to finish dinner and Baba would meet with them after he had rested. Baba went to the living room and laid still on the sofa, appearing to be suffering greatly, absorbed in some inner work. The Westerners came in and sat around him. Baba requested some cold water to wash his face. Afterward he spelled out, "Sometimes I have to take the whole burden on my shoulders. I was on the point of paralysis in the car while coming here, and I could hardly move my arms. I did not even convey this to Adi, who was driving. I am infinite bliss and infinite suffering. It is all me, all one. Free here," pointing to himself, "and bound there," pointing to the group. "All-knowing here, and ignorant there. None but one loves me. Guess who? Baba loves Baba through everybody." Baba then narrated a past incident of his terrible suffering in Mehrabad when, due to world conditions at that time, he had what appeared to be a severe heart attack. Physically, he may have been trembling, shaking, and breaking out in perspiration, but the cause was really his inner working. One of the Westerners asked how he could withstand such suffering. "I have to withstand it all, even if the whole world turns against me," Baba replied. "It is my work. I must endure it." Norina's birthday cake with candles was brought in. Baba cut the cake and handed a piece to each. He then discussed matters with the group, giving Fort instructions to travel in India. Baba again alluded to the thorns in his work, stating, "None of these things can happen. It must not rain on the birthday celebrations of February 17th or 18th. I must not fall ill on either of these days, and none of my dearest ones can pass away before the end of March." In cryptic fashion he concluded, "If none of these things happen, then we can face the big thorn, and after facing it, the atmosphere will become wonderfully spiritual." Baba did not explain what the big thorn would be. After one night in Nasik, he left for Rahuri the following afternoon. Baba gave up solid food and began fasting for the last 10 days of his 40-day fast on only water. 2 days passed and Baba went to Nasik. Gathering the group, he explained some spiritual points, starting with agents. Kitub in Sufism means center. That center controls the whole universe through his agents. Meetings are held, but these meetings cannot be seen with the physical eye. The agents who control the gross only are called abdals. They are capable of changing their bodies. The Urdu word badal means change. Abdal, therefore, is one who can change. Nadine Tolstoy asked what it is like for Baba to feel himself to be God. Baba replied using her given Russian name Nadia. Heaven and hell, God and man, all are here. You are now God plus Nadia. When Nadia disappears, God remains. So Nadia must go. Let Nadia go, and then God remains. Nadia has to make Nadia go. If you merge in me, Nadia goes. The easiest way for Nadia to go is to forget herself. To forget herself as Nadia. How? Think less of Nadia by thinking more of Baba. When Nadia merges in Baba, Nadia is finished. Baba remains. But if you go on thinking how to do it and how to merge, then this thought keeps you back. Don't think of how and when. Think of Baba. But better even than this, and safer too, is to merge in my orders, to do as I say. That is, all should obey instantly. One of the group asked, what if we want to obey, but for some reason are not able to do physically or mentally? If you want to obey, then it is not disobedience. If, for instance, I say fly and you cannot, it is not disobedience, but you must try to fly. Do not say I cannot fly, but just try. In one sense, it is easy to obey, but to do it with heart and soul is difficult. For example, if I say to Adi Sr., kill your father, he will kill him. That is easy. He won't be happy to do it, but he will. Complete obedience, complete blind obedience is very, very rare. If I tell Malcolm, kill Jean, if he has full faith, he will do it, but not willingly. Hence, there is a difference. Complete blind obedience is the outcome of complete faith. At one point, Baba again warned that continually thinking of how to get rid of the ego and how to merge in the infinite is a hindrance on the path rather than a help. Continuing, Baba emphasized obedience. You will always find very many who do not obey. They are just devoted. They worship, but do not obey. Is this clear? Obedience is more important than devotion, even if it is done unwillingly. It counts for a great deal because afterward, in the process, duality vanishes and responsibility falls upon one person, the master, the one you obey. If he tells you to get up, you must. If he calls you, you must go. Love is even higher than obedience. In real love, not ordinary love, love, obedience, and devotion are inherent. Such love gives life, body, soul, all to the beloved. This love is higher than both obedience and devotion. The next step to this love is union. Therefore, love. Give more love, and more love. Big hearts always give and give in. Small hearts take and take in. Love is not understood properly. Every emotional act cannot be counted as proceeding from love. The true sign of love is to give everything, to give and give. One day I will explain about pure love. A mother loves her child, but this is not pure love. It is love plus self-satisfaction. In real love there is no desire for satisfaction, only for satisfying. Nowadays even lust is taken for love. The subtle difference is missed. There is a very subtle difference between love and lust, but it is quite clear. They are two different things. You love rice and curry. This is lust. You love a cigar. Lust again. You love curry and eat it, but do not give anything by the act. You finish the beloved. Later that afternoon of February 9th, Baba explained about hypocrisy and delusion. He asked the Westerners, "What is self-delusion? We say that so-and-so is self-deluded. What is meant by that?" Someone answered, "A person who imagines himself what he is not." To which Baba replied, "But this imagination is so strong that the self-deluded man does not doubt he is what he thinks himself to be. He feels he really is this or that person. This delusion is very positive, but it is, after all, delusion. And although these men are not hypocritical, they are dangerous, but not so seriously. In one sense, all are mad. Deluded persons are always mad. For instance, you think you are the body. You are body mad, aren't you?" Addressing one person in the group, Baba pointed out with a teasing smile, "You are mad, but God mad." Continuing, he stated, "Self-delusion is unfortunate, but hypocrisy is inexcusable. The self-deluded doesn't know, but thinks that he knows. The hypocrite knows that he does not know, but pretends that he does. Self has no sex, but when self treats itself as the body, the illusion of sex appears, and therefore duality. The self in each of us is sexless, but the self in a person thinks itself as a woman, and another thinks itself as a man. This is delusion. A very subtle difference. It all comes from thinking of ourselves as the body. The soul is to the body as the bald man is to his wig. The bald man puts on his toupee when he goes to work in the morning. When he comes home and goes to sleep at night, he takes it off. In conclusion, you must learn to use the body when you need it for work, and to free yourself when you no longer need it." February 10th was Delia de Leon's birthday. It was a rule that the Westerners were allowed ice cream on anyone's birthday. They were about to enjoy this treat when Baba called Margaret and Delia to his room. Delia expected a birthday kiss or embrace, but when they went to Baba, they saw he looked upset. He scolded them. "It pains me to hear that you two think that I am arranging my birthday celebrations on the 17th and 18th only to impress you and the other Westerners. Do you think I need to impress anyone? At least this much you should have realized by now." Baba had been informed that they had joked with one of the Mandali about this, crying. After a while he forgave them and led them into the dining room to celebrate Delia's birthday. It was one birthday she was never to forget. Later that day, Baba explained to the Westerners about his upcoming birthday. "Until a few years ago, my birthdays used to be celebrated on the same scale as it had been planned to celebrate it this year. Then I stopped these grand celebrations. I allowed fewer and fewer people to meet me, and I would not let anyone take my darshan by laying their head on my feet. During my latter visits to the West, I also allowed few interviews. You must have noticed that I often seemed displeased when you had arranged for many people to meet me. The reason for this apparent avoiding of people is that I will draw the whole world to me when the time is right, and when I want. This year, after a lapse of many years, it has been arranged to have my birthday celebrated again on a large scale, because it would give you the opportunity of meeting many of my Eastern devotees. Also, I want to distribute grain and cloth to about 10,000 people and touch their feet with my hand while doing it. But the working of Maya often assumes ironic forms. The 17th and 18th of this month are election days for the new constitution. People throughout India will go to the polls to vote. Thus, half of the people who otherwise would have come might be unable to do so, although Rustam and others expect more than 10,000. Plans to celebrate Baba's birthday on a tremendous scale were underway, and Baba, despite being on a fast, was as active as ever, supervising many things during his visits to Mehrabad, Nasik, and Rahuri. During every available hour, the Westerners were busy helping bundle individual packages of corn in 5-yard pieces of cloth to be distributed to the 10,000 poor being rounded up. Ruano and Nadine's wrists got very sore while tying bundle after bundle of cloth and grain. Nani was the only Westerner exempt from this work because she had arthritis. In addition, there were plans for cooking a feast the same day for all who attended. Meher Baba had stopped giving darshan to outsiders for a long time, and was not meeting anyone other than those staying in the ashrams at Nasik, Rahuri, and Mehrabad. All other people were informed that he was in seclusion, but he had agreed to give his darshan to the public during the 2-day celebration of his birthday. During this period, Baba directed Chandji to write the following letter to Mahatma Gandhi. February 4, 1937. My dear Gandhiji, the 43rd birthday of Shri Meher Baba is to be celebrated on the 17th and 18th of this month on the grounds of the retreat here in Nasik. Among the principal functions on this occasion is the distribution of grain and cloth as a special prasad personally given by Shri Meher Baba to over 10,000 poor and destitute, and others to be invited and collected from the villages in the surrounding districts, irrespective of caste, color, or creed. Shri Meher Baba, who is in seclusion for a long time, will allow darshan to all on these 2 days. The occasion will incidentally provide an opportunity for a meeting of his Eastern and Western disciples and devotees, since it is for the first time that his Western devotees, who have recently arrived to stay here in this retreat, participate in a public function with their Indian brethren. It is Shri Meher Baba's wish that those who can, and especially those who have been in his contact for some time or other in the past, be near him on this particular occasion for the special spiritual significance and importance it has in the personal benefit every individual near him at the time will derive, materially as well as spiritually. It gives me great pleasure to have this opportunity to convey Shri Meher Baba's invitation and his express wish to yourself, your family, and others who wish to accompany you here. We shall be glad to arrange board and lodging for your group arriving, with Shri Meher Baba's love and blessings as always. This is the end of Tape 4, Side 2.